Hello and welcome to the Walk in Love podcast. I'm TJ.
And I'm Brooke.
And today we're going to finish our travel story. At 177 in, I'm trying new intros.
But only in the way you just change.
Only in tone of voice. Not
tone
what I
of voice,
say.
how you say.
Yeah. So
I like it.
Get excited for next week. I got some plans. Thank you for listening to the Walk in Love podcast.
Just get progressively creepier. Hello. Because you have nowhere else to go with it.
You are with Michael Scott. That's a deep cut.
That is a deep cut. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Walk in Love podcast, a weekly conversation between Brooke and I about rhythms, parenting, faith, emotions. It's a place where we laugh and sometimes cry as we try to find language to live a full life.
And if you like your listening to line up with your living, then you are in the right place. We're in the right place.
Someone messaged us and was like, is everything okay? Something. I was worried about you guys because you snapped at the end of the song on the outro. And do we not normally do that?
No, we never snap at the end.
But we did last week.
Yeah. So it was a joke. Are we okay? Because of course we're okay.
Yeah. It was a joke.
Yeah.
But
okay.
I was like, oh, I guess.
No, because I actually noticed that you did it. And so I thought to myself, wow, somebody's going to have to listen literally to the very end to hear that.
And someone did.
Wow.
Wow. We have a collection coming out July 27th at 9 p.m. Eastern, unless you are an Instagram subscriber. Then it comes out on July 26th at 9 p.m. Eastern, and you get the largest discount. 1 day early access, and some of these items will most likely sell out. So all you have to do is go click. Let me get my soundboard up. What am I doing here?
I go online. I go click.
All you gotta do is click over to Instagram, hit the subscribe button, follow the prompts, and then you'll get early access because we'll post a story, an Instagram story with the password and everything to unlock the early access. And
it's very easy to subscribe.
It's very easy to subscribe.
That's how I feel.
And
because I subscribed.
Yeah, I am also subscribed. Yeah. So
it's like a money loop.
It's like a money loop. Like we're basically never gonna run out of money because of that. Speaking of money, I saw this interesting reel clip.
Okay.
So this guy was talking. He was like, okay, imagine I pay $50 for groceries.
Okay.
In cash.
Okay.
I gave that $50 to you in cash.
Yes.
Then you decide I'm going to spend $50 in cash on hardware, like something to do something in my home. So you take that $50 in cash, you go to Home Depot.
Yeah.
But you give them $50 in cash.
Okay.
Home Depot says, hey, we're going to spend $50 on food. $50 cash goes back to the food. That $50 remains $50 as the transaction continues.
It's really interesting. I already know where you're headed based on what you're saying.
So 100 transactions, 200 transactions, if they're all paying with that $50 in cash.
210 transactions?
210, 220.
I'm setting you up for the joke and you're not doing it. Come on.
All that, those.
The $50 remains $50.
Now if you pay with your card.
Unless you come to Hawaii. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I pay you with a card.
Yes.
1.5% of that goes to a bank.
Yes.
After enough of those transactions of that $50, the bank owns all of that money.
Right.
Spooky. And it's no wonder that everyone wants us to be a cashless society because that benefits like banks and credit card companies and processing.
Right.
Spooky.
My brain is still trying to fully wrap itself
so like after
around that.
60 transactions or whatever the percentage is of 1.5%, that original $50 is not still owned by anyone. It's like all that 50 has gone up to the bank.
But where's the rest of the 50? I understand. I'm getting giggly because I recognize that I'm like.
Here's something else to think of. What if Andy
if I can run a mile in 9 minutes? That's one of the best clips. That's how I feel right now.
It's just interesting to think that
No, I fully get what you're
saying.
saying.
There's some deeper more damaging historical context to that, but I was just I've never thought of it that way, that pay card for everything. But again, it's like when you're comparing cash to a card.
Correct.
Like if you take the same $50 in both places,
Yeah.
spending on the card, eventually that $50 has vanished or is completely owned by the bank. Where if you pay it with cash, it just remains $50 through an unlimited amount of transactions.
Whoa.
Spooky. Anyways, I'm not here to talk about economics or cashless societies, but it's on my other podcast called Cashless with TJ. Speaking of cash.
More cash, more problems, but then more money, less problems.
How to Invest in Pearls at the Airport, Volume 1, ebook.
Ebook, download. There's a free download, though, to get you in.
Yeah, and then I'll sell you that ebook so fast. Step 1, get
stuck in an
stranded
airport.
in an airport until they're forced to give you vouchers. Step 2, buy pearls with those vouchers. Step 3, still working on it.
Oh, man.
So we have a collection coming out. It's the best way to support the podcast is by buying t-shirts. So on July 26th at 9 p.m., if you're an Instagram subscriber, or July 27th at 9 p.m., go to shop.walkinlove.com and buy one t-shirt. If everyone on the podcast bought one t-shirt, it would be the most successful collection we've ever had in the history of time.
Mm-hmm.
So think about that. And it's a great looking collection.
It is really good.
I'll give you guys a little peek behind the curtain.
Okay.
I ordered this collection 2-3 months ago.
It's hard to remember. Sure.
But
maybe not even that.
Yeah,
it might just feel like that.
It just feels a long time. And most of the time I feel pretty confident when I order. I'm like, okay, I can picture, which sort of like our customers will buy this one and this one and this one and this one. And I did not feel confident at all. Like I was kind of worried that the collection was going to be kind of a dud, which we've had in the past before. Like years ago, we've had some duds. It's just part of business. It's just part of the sometimes you just miss.
Right.
Like we were talking about businesses making bad decisions. Like, sometimes you just miss when you're just like, hey, we're not going to fly airplanes anymore.
Right.
Like, it's just like, oh,
there's an
smart idea, but maybe not.
Right.
So I was like not feeling very confident about it at all. And like, normally when I order it, I kind of forget about it and like put it out of my mind. And then when it comes, I'm like, oh yeah, this is so good. I'm so excited. And for this one, I was like, I think I made some bad decisions. I think I made some wrong choices. And I just like kind of kept churning on that. And then it showed up and total 180.
Yeah.
Like complete 100% 180 to the point where I'm like, man, this one's really good. Which is so interesting. I wonder what it was in my brain.
Your headspace probably when you were doing it versus
that just
maybe
like,
right now.
Yeah, I don't know. I just didn't have a lot of confidence until it showed up. And then I was
very confident.
I think it's a really good looking collection. We got 6 new designs, 3 reprints, or one's a re-embroidery, I guess. And one is the Love Is full verse with like the sort of splatter look. That one, I don't think we've printed in like a decade.
Close to that, somewhere around that, yeah.
We have, we've been posting Instagrams and reels and stuff about it. And it's interesting, like getting messages from people about that design. It's like, I bought that when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And now, I'm 28 years old.
Yeah.
And like, just wild.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time.
Which is cool.
That one's been out.
And it kind of feels like it's back in style because
it's
like that
cool.
sort of big graphic tee prints are coming back. And,
yeah.
We got tons of those, which is awesome. So shop the collection, buy a t-shirt, buy a sticker, buy a t-shirt for a friend. The thing about the fall collection is it's always, these designs will not be back for Christmas. Like
correct.
It's
too close to Christmas to bring any of them back.
So if you see something from fall, the Rejoice Always collection, I saw your messages that Instagram changed my caption to Rejoice Hallways, just like Ryan Seacrest.
Seacrest collection.
Or
Seacrest. That's what it kept correcting for me.
So
Seacrest.
if you see something that someone would like for Christmas from fall,
you got to get
it now because we won't reprint any of these for the actual Christmas collection.
Yeah.
So shop.walkinlove.com, buy your shirts. A huge thank you from us when you do. And we'll share a discount code at some point during this episode because we always like to give a little extra savings to the Butt Clencher family. All right.
Where were we in our story?
Where were we in our story? So we've told this story now
many times.
We've told it at The Best Is Yet to Come. Parts of it. Excuse me. we told it to friends in person, and we told it half of it on the podcast.
Yeah. And so that makes you can feel confused?
No.
Oh.
We had just arrived in Atlanta.
That's where we're at
That's
here?
where we're at, I believe. And if not, and we're a little bit of overlap, that's okay. Because like when you...
Well, we talked about the wedding. We were already past that.
Yeah.
We're ready to go to Pennsylvania at this point, I think.
I don't think we talked about the wedding very much.
Didn't you talk about the locket and everybody dancing?
I can't remember now.
That's why I told you to listen to
I
the
did
end.
listen. I don't think I got
it.
into it because what's confusing is the day we recorded the podcast last week, Ian and Bianca came over that night, and then we told them the whole story.
Yeah. And so, I don't know.
Because we start talking about the wedding, and then we get into. I'm going to recap last week's podcast.
Okay.
And then we get into talking about like how we're planting seeds, and we don't know what that will harvest between Abby and our girls' relationship.
Right.
Then we talk about doing hard things. We talk about like the two types. Yeah. So we didn't talk about the locket.
Okay.
I don't.
Are you sure? I think we did. Anyway, it doesn't really matter. But like,
so the wedding was great. After the ceremony, Sunny is handed a goodie bag, and it's got a locket in it. June and Sunny. And Sunny goes, "Dad, look what I got." And I whisper over to Brooke, "Oh, it only cost me thousands of dollars in 3 days of my life." I love it. So happy. Wedding was great. First person on the dance floor was one and only Daisy. It was just super fun. People were Abby was really grateful. And then we went so after all that travel, after all that time in the airport, we were in Atlanta or Noonan, Georgia,
right,
for 36 hours.
Yeah, about.
So we got back from the wedding, went to bed. I don't even know if we showered. I think we just went to bed. I think I showered in the morning. Hopefully those people changed those sheets.
I don't remember.
And so we woke up the next morning, again, an early flight.
Yeah.
From Atlanta to Harrisburg.
Yep. We'd go back and drop off the rental car. Go back through the hallways. Right. Go back on the Sky Tram. Go back to the airport. Yep. Go back through not baggage claim.
Checking the bags.
Check the bags.
Thankfully, like at this point, kiosks were working again.
Yes.
Which was really nice.
Atlanta's a moving and grooving system.
So we checked all our bags. And then I had one of the worst customer service experiences I've ever had. We're in the Atlanta. We're waiting for our flight to Harrisburg. At our gate. No delays? I think one delay, honestly.
I do think we had a delay.
One delay. Which like now at this point is like, oh, this is just normal travel. Every flight is delayed.
Yeah.
They don't know what an on-time flight is anymore. Right. So I go up to the gate agent in the Atlanta airport, and he's typing. I
don't know.
What are they typing?
Clickety clack. It's like what movie is that? Where she
like
types
that's like maybe
forever?
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
I thought it was can't say bomb on an airplane.
Oh, Meet the Parents.
Meet the Parents.
Yeah. So he's typing. So I'm just waiting, and I don't feel like I'm waiting with any sort of like
aggression,
hostile body language. And doesn't
you had claws up?
Yeah,
your hands were in like kitty claw shape. But other
obviously.
than that,
but that's just normal waiting formation. Kitty claws. Without looking up, he says, "I assume you need something since you parked right in front of my face." And I was just like, "What?
Wow!"
And I didn't even know how to respond.
Yeah,
it's like, "Oh, I just need a bag tag for my stroller. That's all."
Yeah.
Like it was just.
I know, because like if they're typing and they're really in the middle of something, I don't necessarily want to come up and say, "Excuse me, can you?" Because then they're like, hold on, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just wait until they look up. But your mom had the line of the century.
My mom said, "You should have just said, I just need your name so I can tell your superior how great of a job you're doing."
I was like, "Oh, man, Cindy for the win.
Cindy for the win." That's not her strong suit. Quick wit.
No, but that
she's got a slow wit. No.
no. But when it comes to airport stuff,
she's
the ball. Quicker than us all.
Yeah, literally.
Literally, I mean that.
If you want to keep up with my mom's airport walk with the rollerboard and the bag clipped to the rollerboard,
you need to bring your rollerblades.
You need to bring you need a slow jog,
right?
For sure, your jogging shoes.
Much similar to how we pack for Easter.
So God's grace shined upon us on our flight from Atlanta to Harrisburg,
I'm not kidding you. I do not remember it. I can't picture the plane. I can't picture flight attendants. I don't remember any of it.
We were one row behind the exit row, and there was a seat in the exit row that was open, and I asked the flight attendant if I could move to that seat. And so I got extra leg room, and we got an extra seat for Daisy.
You were like up in front of me to the side. I remember that now.
And I didn't have a kid on my lap for the first flight.
Yeah.
And so it was glorious for me. I fell asleep. Daisy was over airplanes at that point. She wasn't like hostile loud or angry loud. She was just loud.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I feel like I'm not afraid to fly. I know that that's super real for a lot of people. And I feel like I sat next to one of those people.
Yeah.
I could just feel she like gripped her husband's hand the whole time. And, like was very like, not cold, probably cold is how I would describe it, but not mean. And I was just like,
she was cold or
she was cold. Like she was
to
just,
you?
to me, like, I was like, oh, sorry about that. Like I would just
not engaged.
Yeah. Maybe more not engaged than cold, which you can take as coldness. Yeah. But then the second the plane land, bubbly as can be.
Okay. Yeah. That's right. She started talking to Daisy.
And so I was just like, man, I'm so thankful that is not me, because that must be really, really hard for people.
That's me looking over the mall food court edge down onto the floor below. Just remember that I'm not being cold. I'm just not engaged.
Terrified.
Okay. I'm just real scared of heights.
So after all that travel, we were finally in our destination, like our final destination. Obviously, we wanted to be in Georgia for a few more days. But we landed in Harrisburg. A good friend of mine, if you ever need to buy a car in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, go to Auto Connections. My friend Merle dropped off a car for us at the airport, which was amazing to just like walk right to a car, not have to like time a pickup, get in and get going. But it was wild. It was so much travel for, like, it wasn't even just a lot of travel, because like we travel that far to get back for Christmas. Yeah. It was it
was so much time spent traveling.
Yeah.
Not just the literal miles that we went.
Yeah. Because when you travel from Maui to the East Coast, you're anywhere between like a 13 and 20 hour travel time. Yeah. Like by the time like
you
layovers and all this kind of stuff. And so for that to be 4 days or 5 days or whatever it was just, it threw me off. Because not only did it throw me off because it was just like exhausting emotionally and mentally, but it also threw me off because in my mind I was like, oh, we've been here for 4 days. I should be adjusted to the time zone.
Nope.
And so everything just felt off the whole week. The whole week was, I was like, man, we were waking up super early and then like,
but also not, but I was still going to bed at East. I'm like, am I sleeping 19 hours a night? Like, what is happening? It was very confusing.
But it was super fun to see family. We got to go to some 4th of July celebrations.
Which got delayed because of rain. So it felt very similar. I was like, oh, been here.
Yeah, been here. No, not because of rain. Well, the parade got canceled because of rain, but then the fireworks had a delay in them.
Because of technical kiosks weren't working. So it's everywhere. We can't get away from it.
Cannot get away from it. Which brings us to the Best Is Yet to Come event.
Yeah, we went to Hershey Park.
We went to Hershey Park. Got rained on.
Hottest day of the year. Then big storm. Soaking wet. And I mean soaking wet, like, yikes, I'm wearing a white t-shirt, soaking wet. Like, ugh, like not like, oh, it rained a little. Like, we were sopping head to toe, standing underneath like this arcade overhang in hopes that, it would slow down eventually.
I got to ride the Wildcats Revenge. So if you've never been to Hershey Park, it is a very underrated amusement park.
Yes.
Like, I've never been to Universal Studios.
Okay.
But I've been to Disneyland. Yeah. Been to some other ones.
What's the other ones? Like Busch Gardens. Yeah. And then Cedar Point. I never did Cedar Point. I know a lot of people like that.
Anybody who comes to Hershey Park who's done all them all is like, man, this
is great.
This is an amazing amusement park.
It really is. And there's chocolate everywhere.
Win-win. Great roller coasters. But I went on there. They used to have this old roller coaster that was wooden called the Wildcat.
Yeah.
And then they tore it down. They tore most of it down. Yeah. And then built a steel roller coaster sort of like in between. In the bones of the Wildcat, called Wildcat's Revenge. Mm-hmm. And it was unlike anything I've ever been on. And that's
what
the
everybody
only way I
said
can
who
describe
got
it.
off. Like you have to just, I can't explain
So
it.
you sit down, no over the shoulder harness. It's just a lap harness.
Okay.
And you go upside down a ton. So you're like kind of pulled out of your seat, just the tiniest. I mean, you're in there securely.
Yeah.
Obviously, but you're pulled out of your seat. The thing that kind of made it feel like unlike anything else I've ever been on was as you were going up, the like tick, 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 tick.
You're going up the drop, up, getting ready to drop.
They like put the gas on, which I know it's not gas, but like you start picking up
it's
speed.
not like a slow
and then
climb,
you like
and
fall
then
down.
gravity
No, it's like
drops
whoosh.
you. They like shoot you up to then go down.
And then the speed of it was really what kind of like was unlike anything. It felt like, I feel like most roller coasters sort of feel like you're using the momentum of the big drop to get through the whole coaster. I know
unless it's one of those like 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. Yeah.
Which those are usually
then
flat.
You use the momentum. Yeah.
And it just felt like the gas was on the whole time.
Yeah.
And then so much upside down stuff and like twisty upside down stuff.
Yeah.
Just with a lap harness.
Right.
Is sort of surreal.
Yeah.
But it was great. Hershey Park is great. I wish I could have just gone by myself with a fast pass and just like rocked the roller coasters, but
I know you didn't get to do the Great Bear.
Yeah, the Great Bear is my favorite roller
Fahrenheit
coaster.
or any of the other ones. Yeah.
So we're getting ready for the event. We have a pop-up shop. Saturday's a pop-up shop. Goes great. After the pop-up shop, I'm picking up Brad Ellis from Ellis Custom Creations. And if you listen to Ghost Runners, you've already heard this story, but I'm going to tell it from my perspective.
Okay.
So I pick up.
We clean up. I'm like back at my parents' house with the girls, and you're like, I'm gonna go get Brad from the airport, and I was like, cool. Maybe I'll see you later. I don't really know.
Rewind 2 weeks before that, Brad is booking his tickets. He says, "Hey, I can fly into Philadelphia. How far away is that from you?" I said, "It's an hour and a half."
Yeah.
He goes, "What about Harrisburg?" I said, "That's even closer, like 20, 30 minutes."
Yeah.
He's like, "Well, what about Lancaster?" And I'm like, "I could come pick you up on my bicycle." That was exactly what I said. To which Brooke starts laughing at the thought of me on my bike, Brad on the pegs, pulling the rollerboard behind him.
Yeah. Going down 501 Lidditz Pike.
Yeah. So he's like, "All right, well, I'll do that." And I'm like, amazing.
Amazing.
Sends me his details. Don't think anything of it.
Do you remember the last time? I'm now remembering. Do you remember the last time you picked somebody up at that airport? Our wedding photographer flew into there.
I have done it before because I told Brad it was the first time. But yeah.
Which is the last time I think anybody flew into there.
Yeah. True. So I drive to the airport. I texted Brad. I said, I'm in the parking. I'm out front.
Yeah.
And
which is where like you could park,
I pulled up onto the.
No, I'm just talking about how tiny it is.
Yeah, it's very, very small airport.
It's like a restaurant-sized parking lot, and it's long-term and short-term, and maybe employees all in one.
And you don't have to pay for it.
Yeah.
So I pull up on the curb and I say, "Hey, I'm here," because I thought I was a little bit late. And he says, and he replies, "On approach."
Yeah.
To which I think, okay, Brad has a weird knowledge of air travel.
Yeah.
So I pull into the regular parking lot and I'm like facing the terminal. So I'm facing the terminal and I'm on my phone just sort of clicking around waiting for him. I'm looking at stories of people posting that they're coming in for the best is yet to come, which is just such a surreal experience.
Yeah.
Because
just landed. You're like, what?
Yeah. So people came from all over the place, which is amazing. And I see Brad start to come out and I get out of the car, I give him a hug, he gets in the car, put his bags in and we're sitting there. And he's like, "So, just drove in on that bus." and I had noticed the bus like drive up because it was like an American Airlines branded bus.
It was like a fully wrapped
Yeah, and I was
bus.
like, "Oh, that's an interesting thing." I had noticed it, but I didn't see Brad get off of it. Right. I saw him just coming towards me, fully thinking that he was coming out of the terminal. And so apparently, his flight from Kansas City to Lancaster was a flight from Kansas City to Philadelphia and then a bus drive from Philadelphia to Lancaster. And so he's getting in the car. I can't stop laughing. To me, it's one of the funniest things that's ever happened. He gets in the car and he's like, "Maybe this is a normal thing. I have no idea. I've never done this before." I'm like, "I've never heard of this ever before in my life." I can't stop laughing. And he's like, "Honestly, I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. Like, it's more spacious. I got to be on my phone." But I just like...
Yeah. So he's like sitting in Philadelphia at a gate because his gate, his ticket, everything says flight number, whatever, departing, now boarding, groups 1 and 2. Like, they boarded this bus like it was a plane. They walked down the jetway to go then down some steps out onto the runway to get into a bus. And Brad's like, maybe this bus is taking me to my plane. And then, nope. 3 other
then
people.
He gets on it. Well, he says the gate agent was talking so fast he couldn't understand her. Then as he's like getting closer to down the jet bridge or down at the bottom of the jet bridge, the woman's like, do you have any lithium batteries in your bag? And he's like, well, I have my laptop. And she says, oh, that's okay. It just might get a little warm. And at this point, he still thinks this is a bus
to get into a plane.
To a smaller airplane. He's just like, what a weird comment.
Yeah.
I guess I'll take it. It's like, nope, it's just down there on the bottom of the bus.
So bus driver starts that thing up and they just start driving down the runway till they get off the runway and take the highway an hour and 20 minutes to the Lancaster airport, where his boarding pass says arrival gate, CURB, curb. There it was.
Oh man. So I still can't stop laughing about it. It's just the funniest thing. And he was like, I'm glad you think it's so funny, because I was like, maybe this is a normal thing.
Yeah.
And the only person that knew about it was my mom. As we told this story over again, she goes, you took a bus, didn't you? I was like, how did you know this?
Yeah. It's my new dream. It's my new goal to take one of those flight buses. And
so it was just so fun hanging out with Brad. If you don't know who Brad is, he's co-host of a podcast called Ghost Runners. They also have a YouTube channel called Gene Shorts where they do comedy. But I met him through Jake, who also is on Ghost Runners. And Brad and I have just hit it off. Yeah. And I just love hanging with him. And I knew I wanted him at the event just to break the ice, be himself, be funny. And it was just so fun being able to hang with him for 2 days. Yeah. And just, trying to get him to Maui. I think it's working.
I think it's working. For a visit.
For a visit. Yeah. Well,
I don't know. Is that
he loves Kansas City. It's so great. I love Kansas City. Not Missouri though.
Right.
Brad has some strong feelings about Missouri. So
Kansas City, Missouri versus Kansas City, Kansas.
Yeah.
Which side's your brother on?
Missouri. And
whoa.
Apparently it shows.
Whoa. Look out. Okay.
So
I don't think I've ever been to Missouri. I've been to Kansas quite a few times.
Have you flown into the Kansas City airport?
I think so, yes.
Then you've been to Missouri.
Okay. Wow.
So
wow. Okay.
The Chiefs also play in Missouri. So I'm just like, all right, Brad. Whatever.
Yeah.
All right. So Brooke, today, why don't we talk about the event?
Yeah.
Do you want to chime in a little bit here and talk about the event? And
Sure. So the event happened. The event was good. No, I mean, it really was. I feel like I had no idea what to expect. And also, I had a pretty good idea what to expect.
Right.
I wasn't going into it blind or confused or I don't know, we're just going to try it. I felt so confident in who we had asked to come speak. Between Josh and Christy, and then between Jeremy and April, and then just adding Brad for his fun and vibe and all of it. I felt confident, but also we've never done this before.
Right.
And so I was very much feeling both as we were getting ready for it and even as it was happening. But
it was sort of a surreal moment for me. I got there early to sort of set up some of the t-shirts and things, and to walk in, and I said this on stage, I know how many people see Instagram posts. I know how many people like Instagram posts. I know how many
our
people
analytics. We
listen
can
to
see
the
all that.
podcast.
Yeah.
And so I see those numbers.
Yeah.
And all those numbers are much larger than 400, which is what came to the event.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more because we ran out of seats. So I think we had some stragglers.
I know there was somebody at the front door that had come kind of early, and they were like, I can't get my thing, their ticket thingy to load. I can't get it to load or whatever. And I was like, you can just come in. Cause at this point, if you're sneaking into a marriage conference,
you probably need it.
You need it.
You think you need it. So we're going to let the Lord
take a seat.
Speak to you, criminal. But yeah, so I know how many people listen to the podcast. Yeah. And to me, all those numbers I'm always like, how do we get them bigger? They could be bigger.
It's our business, and it's marketing, and it's
And you can and I've spoken about this, that I can get down on myself thinking that comparison, all that kind of stuff. And so to see 400 seats was sort of just like, wow, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of people that are going to be here with us all day.
Yeah.
And then there's this part of me that's like, this many people are coming, right? Like, it's not just going to be like 14 people in the front.
Right.
And no one else shows up, right? Right.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And so to see a crowd full of people, which if I'm going to try to say this as, I don't want to sound arrogant.
Okay.
But if we had a podcast with only 400 listens, I'd be very down on myself compared to what we normally get.
Right. It's many years in compared to where we're at now. Yes.
400 for some podcasts might be like, that's incredible.
That's the goal. Yeah.
And so I don't want to downplay where you are.
But we also have friends with podcasts who have like bajillions of listens and they're like, well, I hope we maintain that.
Yeah. Anyways. And so like I would be down on myself for that.
Right.
And the perspective of seeing that amount of people in person is very heartwarming.
Yes.
Very encouraging, very inspiring.
Yes. Because it's that for us, it's that room like times over and over.
Yeah.
And over
and so
over.
it was just really cool. And every time we've done one of these events, and this is why I like doing the events. One, I just like meeting. I like being with you.
Mm-hmm. Me.
You, Brooke.
Me, human.
Doing things together. Okay. And I also like being with you, Butt Clencher.
Yeah.
Because it's just encouraging to me.
Yeah.
And so it was just
not an interaction over a screen.
Yeah. And I really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And so it was just really, really cool. I felt like Josh and Jeremy and April and Christy just absolutely crushed it.
Yeah.
I could feel physically the wheels turning in people's brains.
Mm-hmm.
People were locked in on them. They taught so well and they were so good at what they do, which was amazing. And we hope to have the recordings available at some point. If you went to the event, we'll send them to you for free. But we'll probably have them like as a download that you can purchase.
Yeah.
We made it through lunch, no hiccups. Everything was going really, really well. And then we had a big long lunch break for everybody. And it was funny. Right before lunch, I asked if anybody packed a lunch. 400 people in this room.
Yeah.
Only 2 people raised their hand.
Yeah.
One of which was my mother. The other which was my father, which was just so good. Yeah. And I'd helped her carry her cooler in.
Right. And didn't think much of it.
Well, I knew that's what it was for, but it was heavy.
Oh.
Like they probably could have fed the 400.
Yeah. Hey, just do the natural.
Just do the natural. And so it was just super fun. It was encouraging to see people that we knew there.
Yeah.
It was encouraging to see people that were strangers. But we broke for lunch. We get back and Brooke and I get up on stage. We do our thing, no problems. And then Josh and Christy get up on stage. And they're about 10 minutes in, if that. And it starts pouring rain, like to the point where it's kind of hard to hear them with a microphone because it's hitting the ceiling so loud.
Yeah, the roof.
And the roof, yeah. And then all the power goes off, completely black.
Yes.
Totally dark. And so everyone's just kind of waiting to see what happens.
For like the generators to kick in and everything to turn back on.
Yeah, so I go back to Phil, the sound guy, who did an amazing job. And I say, hey, like, what do we do? He's like, it'll turn back on and everything should fire back up.
Yeah.
And so it does. And then they start talking again. Maybe 2-3 more minutes go by.
Yeah.
Boom, power out again.
Yeah.
We're waiting for it to go back on. I think it happens 3 times, right?
It might have been by the 3rd time.
By the 3rd time, then I get up on stage and I say, hey, we're just going to take a break and hopefully like the worst of this storm passes. And then we'll get back going. Like there's nothing really else we can do.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting. I'm not one to, I don't think I'm one to over spiritualize things. Would you say that's true?
Yeah.
But as they were speaking, so eventually Phil brought out these like portable speakers with like a wired mic.
He was like, what doesn't need power?
Which was still kind of challenging to hear them with the rain and
100%.
stuff.
It was hard to hear in the back.
That's why you always sit in the front. And so they start talking again. And it was so interesting. Every time they were talking about sort of just the value of marriage and, how much God loves marriage. And like every time they started reading scripture, I swear, the rain picked up, the noise went up. Like it was just, I don't know if it was a spiritual attack, but there was definitely something happening that was like bizarre. Phil said this has never happened to him.
Yeah. And they that's literally what they do there.
Never
Events
lost power
like
there.
this.
He said, well, we lost it once during the rehearsal for like a play.
Yeah.
And that was it.
Yeah.
Josh and Christy said that's never happened to them.
Yeah.
And they speak all over for years and years and years.
Yeah.
And so it definitely it just threw me out of whack a little bit.
Oh,
like,
yeah. I know. Brad and I are in the back. Brad's like, that's what we always say. Devil's in the sound system. He's like praying it out.
Yeah.
April's like praying it out. Like,
eventually we
get
got it back going, but it threw us off a little bit. And so we, like, it's funny. Jeff's main advice for me, for doing the event, Jeff Bethke, for doing the event was make sure that you like talk about your next thing on stage. Like we've, from a business standpoint, we've sold more seats to integrated because we talk about it from family teams. Like, if you don't do anything else, do that.
Super smart. Totally.
Didn't do a single bit.
Nope. Didn't mention anything because I was like, the power's off. The whole room is black and there's 400 people in here.
But then the event finished off really fine. My absolute highlight, 100% highlight
of the day.
I come up on stage with Brooke. We welcome everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I get Brad to come on stage so people can kind of become familiar with him. And we tell the story of his bus flight. And that got the crowd loosened up. And then I got Brad off stage and I go, I brought something from Hawaii. Let me go grab it. And I bring a barbell with 2 big weights on it on stage. Not a single person laughed at that joke.
Yeah.
Like it was crickets. And so then I said, much like Brad's plane, that joke did not land, so I'm just going to move on. And so I use the barbell as an analogy, and when the talk's available, you can hear it all there.
Yeah.
And so, but one thing I was mentioning over and over again was that I've gotten into lifting weights because in Maui you take your shirt off a lot more, and I've been.
Yeah. Turns out if you go to the beach more,
you take your shirt off more,
you wear less clothes
and
more.
so you think about it. And so I'm doing this on stage, and Brad jokingly says to Josh behind stage, and we all know each other. We're all integrated together. Like we're not strangers. Brad jokingly says to Josh, hey, should I go out there without my shirt off? And he's
supposed to go out after TJ and introduce Josh and Christy for the first time. Yeah.
And he says Josh loses it.
Right.
So
at the thought of that happening.
So Brad wasn't going to do it.
Yeah.
But Josh's reaction kind of propelled him to do it. So if you have a friend that's willing to do dumb things, laugh at them when they come up with it, like laugh at their idea just to,
it'll be great.
Just to push them on. So I had accidentally done something in my talk where I forgot something. So I decided to put it at the end.
Right.
But it sounded like I was going to land the plane, and then I was like, oh, but I want to do this one thing real quick. So I actually like landed the plane for the talk, and then
jumped into
this like 4-minute thing.
Yeah.
Well, Brad took his shirt off with about 6 minutes to go.
He's backstage, half undressed, waiting for you to be done. So I come around the back. I've been sitting off stage to the left, like listening to TJ. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to go make sure like Brad's ready and we're ready. Yeah. So I like go all the way back behind the curtain and I just come up on Brad alone, waiting in the stairwell, shirtless with his microphone. And I was like, hey, buddy, this is great. Like, I mean, I did. I laughed hard because I knew where he was going immediately. I was just like, oh man, this is so good.
And so I end my talk and I turn around and Brad's coming at me with his shirt off. And that's why I love him so much.
Yeah.
So that was definitely my highlight. Do you have a highlight?
I don't know if I have one. I really don't. I enjoyed so many elements of it. And I think this was a joke you didn't get to make because like we didn't script what we were saying and like, it didn't all go exactly like we'd maybe talked about the first time, but you were jokingly going to say, as we always say, this is the worst we'll ever be at this. So welcome to the worst best is yet to come event ever. And which is funny, but like I need that reminder in my life so frequently because I am not one typically. In some areas, I love trying new things and I can be all about it. But I would say in general,
those areas for you, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, are mostly by yourself.
Yes.
And honestly, mostly in the kitchen.
Yes.
Like.
Yeah. Like I can be that person, but naturally I'm not. And by default, I'm not. And I'm like, and that's not to say that I'm like super risk averse. It's not that. It's not like, oh, that sounds, I don't know. Like, it's just like, hey, do you want to try something new? Do you want to go do this thing you've never done before?
Yeah.
My answer will just
watching.
Naturally be like, not really. No. Like, but if you do, that sounds great. Go for it.
Yeah.
And so I do need that reminder a lot when I've said yes to doing something I've never done before, that like, it is okay for this to be the worst it ever is, even if that's still really great. I'm not saying it was a terrible event. It was a fantastic event, I believe. But like these feelings of like, we've never done this and all that, like, I don't know, we've never done it before. Like, it's okay to feel those things because it is the first time.
Right.
And I have to remind myself of that. So I don't know if I have one highlight. I really enjoyed the very little I got to look around, because I didn't want to just like stand up front and like stare at everybody who's, hey,
that's a move.
I know you, but it was really cool to see people there that I know, but I don't know super well. Because I feel like when we do a pop-up shop, often I like don't really know anybody, or I've gotten to know them because they come to all the pop-up shops, but I'm talking like 2 circles out of like friends and acquaintances, like still in the much bigger bubble, but like, I don't know if I know all their kids' names.
Right.
Like, you know what I mean? It's sort of like, hey, I know you, but
like,
only kind
what
of.
are you doing for a living now? Like that type of thing.
I know stuff, or like I know their parents, or I graduated with their brother, or like
an
things
acquaintance
like that.
once removed.
Sort of. And so it was really cool to see so many people from my circle, that many circles out at an event like this.
Yeah.
And that just, I don't know. I think that just means that like the event really is and was something people are needing. I've said so many times, like, man, I would have gone to something like that.
Yeah.
If somebody had put on something like that a few years ago, even now, I would probably go.
Yeah.
But like, I was just excited for what we were offering. And then to see people in my immediate circle all the way out to like a few circles out, not just strangers on the internet who were also fantastic.
Yeah. 100%.
But like it was this both and of audience. That was really, really cool for me.
And it's cool because, we've been tinkering with this world, especially like when Jeremy talked, he talked about family teams. He talked about 7-day rhythm, topics that I've heard him talk about a bunch of times.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to me because we've introduced that to our podcast. And so you guys some of you have totally
if you've listened to enough,
bought
you
into
definitely
the
heard
7-day rhythm and you're all about it, which is amazing. And I'm sure you would say the same. And so it was cool to think that people in those sort of second circles, like they were the people that were there for the podcast people that like
100%
are
love
177 in and they love it. Which is awesome. But then, it was cool to be like, hey,
someone like, so many of the wives listen like religiously, and they have listened to almost every episode, but they were able to bring their spouse to this. And it was like, I don't know how many people stood in line where what they said to us was like, I've listened to almost everything and he hasn't, or the other way around, like whatever. And basically like today converted them, which wasn't the point.
No.
The point wasn't like, come to this so you listen to our podcast, but that was just really cool.
And I just
love an opportunity to bring somebody else
of introducing people to really life-shifting ideas. And that's what I feel like both Josh and Christy do from sort of the emotional health perspective.
Yeah.
And Jeremy does from sort of the like family vision perspective.
Yeah.
And so to get hit with that 1-2 combo, it to me like when I remember when I first got hit with that, it was the first integrated 4 years ago, and I just came home and I was shook to the core. Yeah. And 2.5 years later, we moved, and there have been decision after decision made that I can link back to those early days of that is where, the timeline, that's where a branch of the timeline went out. Like I had expected this sort of
into the multiverse.
Yeah. Like picture that sort of like branching timeline that they use in every multiverse movie now. Like that point was where God did something kind of incredible in our lives that I did not know what it would be. And now I can see what it is.
Yeah.
And so for me to think of the possibility out of the 400 people there, even if it just happens to one person, like that is an incredible thing.
Yeah.
And to be able to be the one that facilitated that, which I always feel like I do like facilitating things.
Yeah.
Felt like, man, this feels like something that God has given me giftings in and called me to do. And so to see it all sort of happen and play out was just really special.
Yeah, it was so cool. I really don't know if I have one highlight, but just the whole, that it happened,
Yeah.
that we did it, that we said yes to it, that people said yes to it, that the speakers said yes to it, that the venue, like just that all of it fell into place. And I believe was as impactful for many people as I had hoped and prayed it would be. Like that was just really cool.
And so we'll get into like one sort of final point, but before we do that, like for those of you that hung around in line and to say hi and take pictures and all that kind of stuff, that is such a surreal moment for us. Because, you know, like, I don't know, I just like, it just doesn't feel real. And my dad always kind of like shakes his head and laughs. He's like, what's going on? Like,
I'm like, I feel you.
You know, like people took pictures with my parents and he's like, I don't get it.
Yeah.
He's like, I mean, he's like, you're a likable guy.
Right. I mean, you're really sweet, Bill, but I don't know you personally. Yeah. Yeah. But also, I would say that's even more common in the like, I don't like the phrase influencer, but like in the like internet, follow people you don't really know who are actually just normal people. Like I do feel like that's more normal.
But it was also surreal to be like, people came from South Dakota, Idaho,
Washington,
Arizona, North Carolina, Texas, Illinois, Louisiana,
Florida.
I'm going to send an email to all the people who were there because
you want to make a map. Let's go to the map.
But I feel like sort of having all those sort of surreal moments over and over again that whole day after the trip that we had to get there.
Right.
Really, like Brooke really brought it home. And so I'd love for you to share just a small bit about what you shared at the end, because I feel like that perfectly encapsulates a lot of what we're trying to feel, like what we're trying to not feel, but what we're trying to say.
Yeah.
And might give you language and honestly, just like a really solid encouragement, because we have been using this language now for about a month and it has been
super helpful.
So helpful.
Yeah.
And then it's also kind of funny.
Right. You can take anything and make it kind of funny. But so I shared this at the end of the event, and I'll share it now, whether in context to something like the event or like, you know, even like listening to this podcast. You know, you listen week after week after week and you have all these takeaways and you're like, okay, yeah, cool. Like I'm going to implement that. And I'd like to try this and whatever. And so what I had shared was I was recently reading something, that shared this. It wasn't even like the main part of the book at all. It was just like one little example that was talking.
And we're going to talk about this.
We're going to talk heavily about the book separately a different time. So we'll probably mention it again, but it's this idea of the natural versus the supernatural. So God does the supernatural, right? Like he shows up, he is the supernatural. He's the one doing the miracles. He's making these big, like, are you kidding me? Like, how is this even possible? Things happen. Mm-hmm. That is not our job as humans, as followers of Jesus. Like, that is not our place. That is not our gifting. That's not our job. That is his. Our job is to do the natural. Mm-hmm. And the natural, and I don't mean natural in like, oh, it comes so easy, it's natural. I don't mean like that. I just mean like natural versus supernatural. And so, you know, there's this story in the Bible, and I'll give two examples first, sort of like when, or not sort of, exactly like when, you know, Moses is taking the people. Oh my goodness, my brain, you guys. I did not sleep well last night. He's taking the people like towards the Red Sea, right? And it wasn't like he goes, hey guys, there's a sea parted over there. Let's go this way. Like the supernatural was not already done. He had to go. Everybody had to follow. He had to believe. He had to do his part. Stand there, raise his staff or rod or whatever you call it. He had to do the natural. And then God showed up and did the supernatural. Right. And it's same thing with like the feeding of the 5,000. Is that right? Like, or however many? 4,000 or whatever. You know, they weren't like, hey, we have all this food here, or boom, here's all this food from the Lord. Now let's start feeding people. Yeah. Like, no, like they had to do the natural, which I'm sure didn't feel natural. 2 loaves
and 3 fish or whatever.
Yes. And they had to do their part. And then the Lord showed up to do the supernatural. And so the really cool story is the story of, which I was not super familiar with, is the story of Elijah outrunning a chariot.
Yep.
And so I don't think I have the verse pulled up in front of me now, but basically the verse says something.
Do you want to pause it? And
sure.
Yeah.
You can pause it real quick. Okay. Found my notes, everybody. I think this might be, I don't know what version this is, but it says, things happened fast. The sky grew black with wind-driven clouds, and then a huge cloudburst of rain, much like we experienced at our event, with Ahab hightailing it in his chariot for Jezreel. And God strengthened Elijah mightily. Then pulling up his robe and tying it around his waist, Elijah ran in front of Ahab's chariot until they reached Jezreel. And so it's really cool to read that specific verse in all the different versions, like all the different translations, because that's what the book I was reading was talking about. And they were talking specifically about finances, like the natural versus the supernatural. But you and IT have started applying this to like everything.
Yeah.
Like, am I doing the natural? Am I tying up my cloak in my marriage, in parenting, in my relationships, in my finances, in my health, in my anything? Am I tying up my cloak so that God can show up and do the supernatural? And I think specifically in areas where things feel really hard or really scary or really painful, I think a lot of us sit in that waiting for the Lord to do the miracle before we do any of our part.
Right.
Not always, but a lot of times. Like, oh, okay, you know, so in not literally in me and you, our marriage, but just like hypothetically speaking, like, you know, I'll change, or I'll start doing that, or I'll be kind, or I'll do whatever, or I'll serve this way, when the Lord changes everything, you know, like changes every circumstance and whatever.
Yeah.
And so, man, what a helpful, like
image language,
image and language, not only the natural versus the supernatural,
but tying up the cloak,
thinking about the tying up of the cloak.
Yeah.
Because if God had given him the supernatural strength and he did not tie up his cloak,
he would have tripped.
He would have been tripping and falling and fumbling the whole way, and very unlikely would have made it in front of a chariot. And I mean, I picture someone like a human outrunning a chariot. Like I just picture like, you know, some kid on the side of the road, like selling dates or fruit or whatever that day. And this dude is literally outrunning a chariot with at least one horse, maybe more. Like that's insane.
Yeah. And I think, you know, let's say Elijah doesn't tie up his cloak. He trips because of his super speed and falls on his face.
Yeah.
God does not get the glory in that scenario. And so when we tie up our cloak, we are basically setting the table for God to get the glory in our lives. And it has been so encouraging. And it's really encouraging in like the mundane, especially like, you know, this book is specifically about finances, of like keeping the budget and checking it every day and, you know, making sure like all that kind of stuff can feel very mundane, you know, day in and day out. Like same thing with fitness. We talk about fitness a lot as just like a good sort of metaphor for life. Like the natural is that I just show up to the gym and I eat healthy and I, you know, weigh myself every day or whatever. Right. You know, I count my calories or whatever the natural is. And then God can do the supernatural in your body. He can bring healing. He can bring restoration. He can like, and so, but sometimes I think we just let, you know, we expect like, God, just make me feel better, but I'm drinking 2 liters of Coke a day and, you know, 6 bags of chips and a bunch of donuts. And we're like, God, why don't you just do the supernatural and make me feel better? Yeah. And, you know, I think he's saying, hey, we got to tie up our cloak. Yeah. Like, you got to tie it up from time to time. And so I felt like that was sort of what we saw at the event. Like we just like,
well, I feel like because people probably didn't have the language going into it, but I feel like by saying yes to an event like that and like buying a ticket and going, and then I also feel like it from our perspective, me and UT, saying yes to an event like that, like that was us tying up our cloak. Yeah. Like we tied it up and said, we're going to do this event. And then people tied it up and said, I'm going to go to that. Yeah. I'm going to invest in that thing.
And honestly, like time. Jeremy, Josh, Brad, all the speakers just tied it up by just speaking. Like, let's just speak what we've learned. Yeah. And now we hope our prayer and our, you know, is that God will do the supernatural. And so whether people were there and they were in a great place in their marriage, God's going to do the supernatural and take their family to like new levels and new places and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or if someone was like in a real rough spot in their marriage, we're hoping that by them tying up their cloak and being there, God will do the supernatural and like restore maybe some brokenness and some damage in relationships for his glory. And so that was just the sort of like overwhelming feeling of that day that like, man, this is cool. And we get to play such a tiny little part in it.
Yeah.
While God just like blows people out of the water.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what the Christian life is mostly about.
Right.
Like what sort of small natural tie up the cloak part can I play so that I can see the goodness of God just kind of explode all over.
Yeah.
So if you came, thank you. If you missed it and you're like, please do it again.
We think we are.
We think we are. There's obviously a lot of details that you need to figure out. But we believe that, at least for now, we hope to make this a yearly thing.
Yeah.
Remember, Brooke doesn't like committing to something for all of time. Either do I, other than marriage.
Right. Hey.
But yeah, it was just such a life-giving event for us. And I, from what we heard from you guys, it was for you as well. So we hope to just continue to do it. And so here's my sort of podcast request, butt clencher request is if you did come, you're getting an email. I have a questionnaire for you to fill out. That'll be super helpful for us.
Yeah.
If you didn't come, send us a DM on Instagram or I guess that's the best place of who you would love to come speak.
Only if they didn't come?
Well, I'm going to ask the people that did come.
Oh, yeah, and they're going to be asked over there. Sorry. Wasn't tracking with that. Sorry, everybody.
If you did come and you still want to answer that in the Instagram DM, so be it.
Right, but you'll get a chance to answer it on the form.
That's what I was trying to say.
Got it.
Who would you love to come to speak? Okay. And then instead, so every time we do this discount code, we get like a bunch of messages from people saying, what's the discount code? What's the discount code? I listened to the whole episode. I couldn't find it. What's the discount code? Which I'm like, I feel like we make it pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So for this collection,
okay,
the discount code is... What is it?
I don't know. I thought you had one. Go for it.
I don't have one.
Go for it.
Is pearls?
Sure.
Or is yuck?
Yuck is pretty good.
Okay. So for the fall collection, the Rejoice Always collection, use the discount code YUCK. YUCK. Don't spell that incorrectly, Christians. You will save extra compared to sort of like the generic discount code that usually circles around during a collection because we appreciate you and we love that you listen to the podcast every week and we're very, very thankful. You can also message us 177, just that alone. 177, nothing else. And we will remind you what that discount code is. Yeah. So you can have it in your DMs if you don't want to come back and you have a hard time remembering. So there's two different ways you can get it.
Yeah.
One, you can just remember it's the word yuck, like Sonny drawing those old lady yuck shoes. Or you can message us 177. The collection comes out July 27th at 9 p.m. Eastern, 24 hours early if you subscribe on Instagram. Please buy a shirt. It means the world to us.
Yes.
And I think that's it. Okay, I love you. Bye. Snap, 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 snap. Snap.